So this armor set belongs to the foot soldiers of Mesmer's army, and it's got a kind of Nordic or Norman style conical helm. You got a chainmail coif under that, and he's got some kind of scarf wrapped around his neck and shoulders, and he's got a really basic raggedy gambeson, and he's got these partial greaves with this kind of half sabaton thing. I don't think I've ever seen that before. And then these knee pads, I believe they're most of the examples you'll see will have these little winged metal protrusions on the side that help to kind of block incoming strikes to the inner knee. And then he's got these bracers and these gauntlets, which I guess you could call splint mail. The regional knight armor sets can kind of be categorized as their own whole thing because they all have the same issues. They definitely do seem more like cavalry armor than any kind of infantry armor because of this little shield that they have on the left breast. This is of course a jousting shield, which during jousting matches, this is what you aim for. The goal is to strike as hard and precise as you can, and I don't think something like this was ever used in combat. And then the helmet's kind of weird. It doesn't appear to fit a normal human head. And from all the cursory glances that I'm taking at it, it doesn't seem like there are any kind of hinges or straps or anything that allow this lower part of the helmet to kind of come apart to allow the wearer's head to slip in. And then of course it also looks like it has terrible visibility. As for the whole surcoat over armor thing, it does have a historical precedent, especially during the 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries. And they're called either a surcoat, or if it's kind of padded, it's called a jupon. This armor is interesting because it's got the big crest on top of it, and this is a common theme with a lot of the armor, where the helmet will have a big crest, and if that's a solid piece of metal, then that's going to be super heavy and super impractical. So this definitely doesn't look like it should be field armor. It looks like it should be some kind of parade armor. This armor is not so bad. The neck protection is fairly decent. Okay, there might be some kind of chest protection under the surcoat, but it doesn't look like there are any kind of folds or tassets underneath the lower section of the jupon. And then obviously this particular variant, the wings on the back take inspiration from the Polish hussars. And then across all the different knight armors, they all seem to have the same weird elbow protection, which is historically inspired, but doesn't look that practical in this case because it's kind of just floating and not really connected to anything, and because of how wide it is, it looks like it would slip right off. Got a weird thing where the tassets kind of wrap around, and this isn't really Western style armor. You don't really see that in Western style armor, at least not to the extent of my knowledge. And then of course it's missing the folds that connect the cuirass to the tassets. It's missing the little winged things on either side of on the outside of the kneecap. Okay, it's got the sword breakers on the pauldrons. These are called sword breakers. And I don't really know what the historical inspiration for this helmet is, but with the barring on it, yeah, there's some kind of funerary helmet from the 16th century. You got this weird kind of fur cloak going around it, and is an actual historical thing, like as the Middle Ages gave way to the Gunpowder Ages. There are a few image examples that I know of where they have the partial leg armor, and then where they have the knee-high leather boot under the partial leg armor, and then this breastplate is kind of weird. Okay, the reed armor is good. I don't think I've ever seen these little braided rope decorations in any kind of real samurai armor. Alright, this armor looks alright. It's kind of like just the regular knight armor. Got the same thing with the clean rot armor, where there are no folds connecting the chest piece to the tassets. It also has no upper leg armor. And this, despite all the flaws, I think is still a really cool piece because it shows off a underappreciated form of Renaissance era armor decoration. And it's got this kind of clothes helm. It's very similar to a piece of the Greenwich garniture, which is a armor garniture made for the English Tudor monarchs. That crest, though, would prevent it from opening all the way. Here's the unaltered version of the Banished Knight armor. It's got one mitten-style gauntlet and one fingered gauntlet, and then it's got these kind of, I'm gonna call them duckfoot sabatons, which started appearing around the Renaissance. Before that, they were the pointy-tipped Gothic-style sabatons that most of the other armor sets have. And then, like I mentioned earlier, this is a cloth covering that goes over the armor called a jupon. And some early helmets do have cloth coverings that go over them, like especially great helms. And here is the altered version of the armor. It's got this weird horn on the right pauldron, which could function as some kind of sword breaker. This is like an Elizabethan style armor. The only thing that really detracts from the design at all is this weird dragon sculpture on top, because like with the rest of the armor, if that's a super heavy piece, then it's gonna exert a lot of weight onto the wearer's neck. And then it's got this weird hair stuff which you can't remove. Can't really get a good look at what the visor looks like because of the shape of the visor. I think you could classify this helm as a barbute. And it's got the same sabatons and the same gauntlets. And then we got this one. This one is just ridiculously gaudy. Imagine how much time it takes for an armor smith to hammer out all of those little designs. And then it's got this weird mantle thing in between the pauldrons with all of this decorative leaf imagery and these jewels. And it's got this super thick, super heavy looking neck piece and these giant pauldrons and these massive tassets that almost go down to the knees. This thing is just ridiculous.